Frank Sinatra, Louis Armstrong. Now I'm telling you the people I saw as I was a kid. Cab Calloway, the guy who did Caledonia, Louis Jordan. Singly, I watched these people when I was young. And I'm saying, okay, what do they got to offer beside a hit record? A hit record makes them known to the world. When you go see them, each person sings all their hit records. And after it's over, thank you, woo, 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 wah. But then they're out looking for something else. What is the something else they're looking for? Something different, something different, something different, something different. I put a spell on you. Cause you're mine. Stop the things you do. What up? I ain't lying. I can't stand. No running around. I can't stand. He was different. That cat was a talented man, very talented. He put an act together with himself that caught on big time because he was different. He was comical and scary, and that made it, you know. And a lot of people can't do that. They don't have that talent of being Bela Lugosi type thing, you know, like Dracula. What up? Hey, man. I love you. I love you. I love you. If you don't want me, I'm yours right now. I put a spell on you because you're mine.
I used to live in Greenwich Village in New York City in the Lower East Side in the 80s. In 1984, Screamin Jay was playing a little rib joint around St. Mark's Place. And I saw little handbills on telephone poles saying that he was playing at this little beer and rib joint. And I was shocked because he had a piano, but no band. And he wasn't even playing his own material. He was playing oldies, Fats Domino stuff, some old rhythm and blues, some Little Richard. And he was playing for a yuppie crowd, maybe 30 people. And they had no idea who he was. They were there to have some beer and eat ribs. And as he would play, the owner of this place would come up and harass him throughout the whole set, giving him orders, telling him what to do, telling him when to start, stop, what to play. It was really infuriating. And every night after the show, I would talk to him and try to get to know him. And by the third night, I said to him, you know, I have a band, I'm on a record label. It's a small label. I told him it's nothing big. It's nothing that's going to make you very much money. And the very first thing he said to me is, I don't like white people. And I said, well, Jay, I don't like any people. And I don't know, that just seemed to break the ice.
I would think that Screamin Jay's story, just by who he was and what he did, is an incredible journey for anyone to have undertaken, and had a tremendous impact on the imagery of the art world in general, not only in musical performance, but in the genre of horror films. The connection of life and death, and how we perceive it, and how a guy like Screamin Jay helps us face the ultimate that we all have to face, and laugh at it.
I do not understand English, señor.
Vous no compris English?
Sorry?
You no compris English?
No comprendo.
No compris.
Comprendo.
Okay, I can tell if you're lying, because what I'm about to say, if you understand me, there's going to be a horrible reaction on your face. Frank?
Yeah?
Why do women wear lipstick?
I don't know.
Danger, wrong hole. You see that look on her face? Look.
She understood.
Sure she did.
It was funny because Jay was so sensitive, you know, he could fuck with other people, but he got kind of hurt if you did it back, you know, sometimes. It was kind of contradictory. But that's because he was such really a sensitive man, you know? And a really a tough, wow, what a strong man to go through all the shit that he went through, in just racially and how he grew up, and then in the music business, and being so incredibly talented and not ever getting treated with the dignity he really deserved, you know? I mean, he did by certain people, but to me, he was like a national treasure, like really something so valuable in our culture.
You think of the 50s as being so conservative and so straight, but yet that's when Screamin Jay was popular. You know, that's when I think it's just that people lost sight of what he was doing. You know, in a time of Alice Cooper, it was being big in the early 70s and things like that. There was every reason why someone like Screamin Jay should have been huge. I think maybe he was too real. You know, to a certain degree, you know, he acted out things on stage, but what he acted out on stage was definitely real. It was definitely part of him. You know, I could see it that night, first night I ever saw him, I could see it in his eyes, clearly. You know, the man was, you know, I don't want to say insane, because he wasn't, but definitely possessed, you know.
Possessed from what?
Possessed of I would like to say possessed with the spirit of rock and roll, but something beyond that. So definitely possessed with this, definitely possessed with the spirit to go beyond what normal people do.
Frank.
Yeah.
What killed the pirate, Captain Hook?
I know. It's Crutch's bow, right?
No, he white with the wrong hand. Fantastic. No wonder all the ancient Greek goddess come from here. That kitty had something to declare.
Yes.
Ray Charles, he passed the fish market. He said, "Hello, ladies."
You see, I still turn around, you know.
Well, that proves that you're human. And Ray Charles can't see nothing. He can smell it. He can smell it. I got a woman. Wake up, sound.
Yeah.
Good to me. Oh, yeah. Well, you're still human, Jay. You know, I like the idea that a man, President Carter said it best. He was married to his wife, and he says, I looked at another woman, and I lusted in my heart. Do you realize what you can do with a strange woman just by thinking? You can meet her, say hello, take her to bed, make love to her, and you never did this, but you're thinking in your mind.
You do.
And this one girl said, what are you looking at? I said, just a minute. The sun shines on shit, so I know I can look at you. And besides, I just had you, and you ain't no damn good.
My first show was with Screamin Jay at the Apollo Theater, and I think it was 1959. He was co-starring, he might have been starring. I had never seen him before. It just blew my fucking mind when this fucking hearse pulled up and this coffin come out. And he jumps out of this coffin with a pocket full of firecrackers. Pow, he throws them down and they blow up, you know. I think that he's one of the most creative guys, because he was a fuck-up like me. You know, we are fuck-ups.
Somebody told me, says, well, you know, you play in Detroit at the Flame Show Bar. And I said, yeah. So they said, well, Screamin Jay Hawkins is coming in after you close. So my band and I, we played the gig, and we left and we were hanging around Detroit for a couple of days, and Screamin Jay came in and went in, and the promoter come running up to the hotel where we were staying at and asked us if we wanted to work another couple of nights. And we said, sure, we was just wasn't doing anything, you know. So we found out that Screamin Jay had ran all of the people out when he jumped out on the stage and talking about, I put a spell on him with all them bones and things on him, and people freaked out and ran out the club. And that was his entry.
He was a character that you would never forget, and a friend that you would love to have, because he wasn't a liar. He wasn't a liar. He's like my kids. They don't lie. They tell you just what's going on. Bam, just lay it out there. And that's the way he was.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I hope you like me for that lie I just told for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Screamin Jay
getting some respect again in the States, but you know, he was always more appreciated in Europe. Even before I made Stranger Than Paradise, I was in a band for a while, and this one guy, yeah, and Philippe Van Hagen was a bass player in our band. He was French, and he knew everything by Screamin Jay. But other friends of mine in like punk scene in New York were not that familiar with Jay, so I think he was always more appreciated there. But that's true of most like sort of, I guess, like non-mainstream culture in America, or the, you know, the real shit is more appreciated elsewhere.
I did see him in person 10 years ago at a terrible club in New York, Uptown. It sounded like a cowboy club. I don't know what it was. He was displaced, you know, a king displaced in this crappy little club uptown with a bunch of rednecks applauding for him whenever he lifted the skull or whatever. Nobody was interested in the music up there. This man should be at Carnegie Hall in a tuxedo, the way he sings, you know. Yeah, he sings to the gods. I mean, that's a singer.
This is America. They care about Snoop Doggy Dogg. You know? Snoop got away with murder. He's hip. He's great. You know? Maybe when they see your documentary and they hear that Jay actually killed some people, maybe he'll get some respect. That's all that's important here, not music. How many people did you kill?
In the Second World War, my outfit got ran over by a battalion of Japanese. And I was isolated for 8 months in one of the Japanese intern camps. And I was a sergeant. And I was a young dude, but I did a lot of killing. I enjoyed it. I didn't have no danger. I figured if they're gonna kill me, I'm dead in, so I kill as many as I can. And it was beautiful to me to be able to take a life knowing I don't have to go to jail. But he's the enemy. If I don't kill him, he'll kill me. So when they caught me, they caught us, and they overran our camp. We were asleep. And the guy says, well, he's a sergeant. I saw his stripes. So he says, okay, we want to know the strength, how many people, where your mechanized stuff is, how many shots. I said, let me tell you something. You can ask me. Listen, I was raised in America. I went to Yale and all. I said, you know, asking me questions, you get no answers. Because I am black in America, and they don't even tell me what time the chickens wake up.
Standing on the corner in Hong Kong.
They put me over here and told me to fight or I would die or they'd kill me. Now that's it. So you got me. Do what you want. You want to torture me? Kill me, because I don't know nothing. All I'm going to do is scream you to death. I'm going to make enough noise to drive you crazy. But you might as well kill me. I'm over here killing you, so kill me. You got me. So they turned around and they beat me for about 3 months. Every morning they stuck knives in my butt, in my thighs. I got knives marked here, here, under there. I got them. And the doctor's saying, damn, you got more scars on you than a crossword puzzle. I said, I'm alive. That's all that's important. So anyhow, then I became a joke. And they said, well, don't bother him, you know, he don't know nothing. So when they caught the American white boys, they got mad because I wasn't tortured. I said, I was tortured before you got here. But I don't expect you to believe it. Yeah, but why don't they ask you questions? I said, they asked me everything. And they found out nothing. Well, we don't know nothing. I said, well, you're white. You got to be right. I'm black, so I got to get back. And they didn't like it. They didn't like it. They didn't like making jokes, man. But it's the only way to laugh when you're facing death. You got to find something to live and be happy about, or you're dead anyhow. And then when they did save us, the guys came in, the paratroopers got 82nd Airborne came through there, and they liberated us from that camp. So I told the dude, I said, give me your gun and give me one hand grenade and leave me alone for about 1 hour. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I want the commandant. And I busted in, I shot 3 of his guards before I got to him. And then I tied him up and put him in a chair. And he says, what's your problem? We stopped bugging you. I said, for what you done to me, I got to get even. And I forced the hand grenade in his mouth and taped it around his head. And then I looked at the door and yanked the pin and ran and leaped out the door and laid on the ground and watched his whole head disappear. And then I was satisfied. I get the guy back his gun. I says, okay, we can go and get on the LSD now.
When he was captured by the Japanese, right, he was tortured. And he had a big problem with Asian people for just his memory. And he had to act with these 2 young Japanese people. And he took me aside and said, you know, he said, I got a problem. I have too much bad memory. I'm trying to get over it. It's not rational. I don't dislike these 2 people, but I'm afraid of them, or they make me nervous. So it was good. He was very open about that. So I made sure that they understood. I talked to them separately about his life a little bit, and they were in awe of him. They really loved him. And then then I made them spend time together. And once he spent a little time with them, it changed. You know, he got more relaxed around them. And even to the point that later he had a Japanese wife, or, you know, so I don't think that would have happened before Mystery Train.
When I came out the military, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. I spent 1 year with Tiny Grimes before I left him. I spent a year with Fats Domino before Fats Domino would say, you see this ring? That cost me $36,000. You see those shoes? $2,500. How much your shoes cost, Jay Hawkins? I said, $2. And then when he told me, he says, go in the balcony. There are 5 balconies in the Apollo Theater. Go to the last and tell me how many times my diamond ring sparkles. I said, you can't count that. Every move you make, it may sparkle 15 or 20 times. Because you're trying to make an asshole out of me. He said, you know, I'll knock the fat black off of you. I was really pissed with him. So I quit. But I learned from these people, man, to them, money and success went to their mind. They didn't know how to treat their fellow man. So I said, well, how can you be different and still be right at the same time? 1, I can't sing. Not to my knowledge. 2, I can holler. I can scream. I said, you want a name? That's it. Screamin Jay Hawkins. I said, now if you're going to scream, you got to scream on everything. So that means you're never going to be a good singer. You can't sing anyhow. Make noise.
So I began to scream. Oh, until you make me cry.
They was telling me then, you're 20 years ahead of your time. People ain't ready for somebody like you. When that first picture I made in 1957 was called Mr. Rock and Roll. And I stepped out there dressed like an African warrior. And even the black people give me hell. The funeral parlors give me hell. The government and the state gave me hell. So you're making fun of your own people. I said, no, there are black people who can sing the blues, so I'm one of them. He turned the places out. You know, it's kind of hard to go on stage behind a man that's got an act that kids want to see again, you know, again and again, you know, with the bones and the flashing stuff that he did on stage and stuff like that. That made it want to be seen again, you know. And even me, I'd stand and watch.
Someone like Screamin Jay, and to a lesser degree Bo Diddley, coming out, acknowledging their blackness, not trying to get away with it. Chuck Berry, for instance, would slick his hair in an Elvis pomp. He would come off like a white man with dark skin. Little Richard would wear makeup. He was definitely black, but he made himself pretty. If you look at Screamin Jay or Bo Diddley, they are very black. If you listen to Screamin Jay, he had all this reference in his lyrics and his vocals to cannibalism and jungle this and jungle that, and it was kind of voodoo.
I've always had a problem with Screamin Jay's character and wondering whether he was voodoo or hoodoo. But I think that the fact that he was raised by Indians, and the fact that he had a great long life and produced many children of it, I've heard. To me, that explains that the guy was definitely the real thing, that he was definitely had his feet in the voodoo, in the ground, the earth of voodoo. And some of the things that he presented to the audiences was voodoo, but I don't think he was ever anything else but the real thing.
We were rained out. It just wouldn't stop raining, and we wanted to shoot something that we had started shooting and it wasn't raining, so we had to wait for it to rain. And Jay took out all these bones he had in a little leather bag, and he rolled them on this table and said, "All right, go set your cameras up, get ready to shoot because it's going to stop raining." And we were like, "Come on, Jay, are you serious?" He said, "Well, I'm half serious. Let's go see." And then like 5 minutes later, it stopped raining. It didn't rain again the whole time we shot there. So I'm never sure how much was that coincidence or was that really Jay. You know, I don't know. I would believe he had something to do with it. I'm not sure. Really like a very magical guy.
Cannibalism is not usually considered to be something positive, you know? I mean, not that I don't mind being eaten once in a while, but the average person is kind of scared of that, you know? Voodoo scares white people.
Nobody thought about death in the 50s except in terms of, you know, the threat of atomic annihilation. It was there at the back of everyone's head. I mean, you know, World War II continued in a way. The threat of being the politicized threat supported by the government to make everybody believe that a bomb shelter in the backyard was going to do us any good. So somebody who threw it in their face was either acknowledged, like say an Alfred Hitchcock movie maker, or went underground, like Screamin Jay did.
After the war, the young people, they didn't want to have the old language that their parents had used. They were looking for something new, something a little more direct, because the war got rid of a load of our social and moral barriers, you know. So they wanted a language that was more to do with that. And I think Bo Diddley and Screamin Jay came in there, you know.
It took 20 years. From 1957 to 1977, I made a picture about Alan Freed, the guy who did rock and roll. It's called American Hot Wax. American Hot Wax, yeah. And they asked me, they bugged me the whole time, do what you did in 57.
When I was 14 years old, which was 1957, I went to a New York Paramount Alan Freed rock and roll show, and Jay was one of the performers. And that was before the coffin days, but what he did was they would announce him, and then the stage would be bare, and across the stage would come these clattering teeth, you know, and then from out of nowhere, you see, then the curtains would open and it'd be like this guy would have his back to you to go, you know, I put a spell like that. He just jumped out at you like that, and as a kid, you just, you know, jump back.
His voice, when he did that, I'll put a spell on you, you know, this cat scared me, you know, and I'm standing there looking at him, you understand?
But there's so much more to Screamin Jay than just his shtick. His shtick is just the icing on the already packaged deal. He didn't even need to do that. But that was his gimmick. In the 50s, you needed a gimmick. Yeah. It wasn't even his idea to do the coffin. Jay told me that was Alan Freed's idea.
I got 15 people to go down and congratulate this black man for getting a job on a white radio station in Cleveland, Ohio, who turned out to be Alan Freed, who was white. And he loved black blues, and he played it. So I followed him. You bring me your first record. The first record I brought him was I Put a Spell on Him. He broke it.
I put a spell on you. Because you're mine. Stop the things you do.
So then this girl turned around, she looked at me, she said, I want to know, are you making love to other women when I'm not here? She only come on the weekend. I said, of course not, you know, they're fans. I'm lying, you know. And she said, Jay, tell me the truth. If you're doing something and I ask you and you tell me now, we'll stay together. If you lie to me, I'm going to leave you. Her clothes were gone, the pictures was gone, the records was gone, and I let out a scream I didn't know I had. I didn't know that much about Screamin Jay then. And 2 weeks later, I'm in the studio doing I Put a Spell on You. And I dedicated to her. And a month later, she came to say hello. So I says, come on, I'm taking you to lunch. I took her to a $500 lunch. She didn't eat that. Champagne and everything. She said, what's all this for? I said, well, I wrote this song for you. All of a sudden, it's like I got a good record. She says, that's not going to wipe away your bad crime. I said, what did I do wrong? I was normal. She said, but you lied about it. I said, yes, you're right. You going to be good now? I said, yes, I'm going to be good. I lied again. Because I was after her girlfriend now.
Do you know what he was doing? No. No, because you always said that in studio recording Spell, he was drunk as a skunk. He didn't know what he was doing. He was in love and said, I want you, you know.
I put a spell on you, spell on you, spell on you, Lord, because you're mine, you're all mine, you're all mine, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I remember that when I used to perform it down at the UFO Club, you know, which was the English Underground Club, I can remember on several occasions actually bursting into tears while I was singing. There were tears pouring down my eyes because it's a very, very dramatic song.
Let's face it, you know, you're going to go home, I'm going to be there. You're going to go home, somebody's going to be calling, it's going to be me, I'm going to be knocking at the door, I'm going to be the one that's, you know, tying you to the, you know, door, and it's just the way I am. I'm sorry, you fell in love with the wrong person. I'm a fucking freak. Watch, you made a mistake, and here I am, and I love you.
Mystery train.
First time I ever heard it, I remember, was on a really small transistor radio, late at night in my room, and it really like haunted me. It just never, it's still haunting to me.
Jim, oh, what a hell of a director and producer he turned out to be. He's a man of very few words. He's right to the point. He tells you what he has in mind. He says, you know, when I did Strangers in Paradise, he says, I put this Hungarian girl with this tape recorder to sing I Put a Spell on You all the time throughout the picture.
It had a waltz tempo, which is a kind of Central European musical form, and yet it's like a strange, snarling R&B kind of blues side to it. And the idea of putting those two things together made it interesting for me for the character in the film who comes from Hungary. She has, you know, some knowledge of American culture, but it's in the form of Screamin Jay Hawkins, which is kind of like outsider culture anyway.
Stop the things you do. What the fuck is that?
I really hate that kind of music.
It's Screamin Jay Hawkins, and he's a wild man, so bug off.
And then I realized Jay had no rights to the song, and so I had to pay a licensing fee to people that I knew that money never got to Jay. So that really bothered me. And then I thought, I got to find him. I got to find him himself and make sure he's okay with this song in the movie and that he gets paid. And I forget how I found him. I guess through maybe people at Squat Theater helped me. I can't quite remember, but we found him and he was living in a trailer in New Jersey and he had no phone.
There was money being produced, money being generated by I Put a Spell on You, but Jay wasn't getting any of it.
That goes back to dollar bills. You understand? And see, I have to say it this way. I hate to do it this way, but they would pay my white brothers, but they wouldn't pay me.
Ashes, ashes, ashes of a broken heart.
You know, I made sure he got paid extra. Like, I already licensed the music, I had the rights to it, but he wasn't getting any money. So I made sure he got the equal amount of that money. And then later when the film made some money, I got him some more money at a certain point, and he never asked for it. You know, I just wanted to show him my respect for him. And it's funny though, because almost every time I talked to him, almost every time for years, he would say, you know, I owe you that money you loaned me. And I would always say, Jay, I've told you, it's not a loan, you know? That's for your work in the film or whatever.
The old record company game, which has gone on since recording was invented, is the artist comes up with the ideas, the artist delivers the message, it goes onto wax or magnetic tape or digital masters, which are kept by the company, owned by the company, leased by the company, or bought in perpetuity and beyond into death, beyond death, they own your music. And the very nature of the rock and roll music game is that the artist has to go out and promote the music. So therefore, you immediately separate the artist from his income, which has to go into some bank or some accountancy somewhere. And then you have a thing called creative accountancy, which means you don't get what you're supposed to, somebody else does.
Something happened in this period around 1962 where I think Jay asked for his royalties. I think Jay went in and said, look, I'm the owner of this song, I Put a Spell on You. Went into the record company and he asked for his money. And whatever happened there scared the hell out of Jay. Jay told me that he was told that when he asked for his own royalty money, he was told that black people don't get royalty money. They just take what's given to them without asking. And when Jay insisted and tried to use a little muscle, Jay told me that's when he discovered that the record industry at that time was controlled by the mob. And Jay was told in no uncertain terms that if he didn't disappear, the only thing he was going to get was a pair of cement shoes in a nice quiet resting place at the bottom of a river somewhere.
Shouldn't have been that way, but that's the way it was. And a lot of people say, oh, why are you hollering about this, that, and other? Once you're 21, you can't be 21 again. You can only double it, okay?
Jay and I arrived in Los Angeles. I booked him into the Chateau Marmont Hotel, which was sort of a rock and roll haven. But remember, it was early 1969, and we were still talking the age of love and peace. And we were up, I booked Jay in the room on the 5th floor, and there were three suites, the 3 best rooms in the place. And on one side, I think, was Albert Grossman. He had the first room, and he was Bob Dylan's manager. And on the other side was somebody like Art Garfunkel or Paul Simon, some peace and love guy. So I left Jay after a few drinks and came back in the morning, and I knocked on Jay's door, and the door opened like that, and I stuck my head inside the door, and there was Jay sleeping on the couch. And I said, Jay, what are you doing on the couch, man? You've got one of the most expensive two-room suites in the rock and roll world here, and you're sleeping on the couch. And he said, follow me. And he took me into the bedroom, and he had taken the pillows and made the shape of his body under the covers on the bed and put a wig there where his head would be sticking up out of the covers. And then tiptoed over to the window and showed me where he had booby-trapped the window. Now, you have to understand that this was the 5th floor with no fire escape outside the building. So only Spider-Man could have gotten Jay, and he would have had to climb up the side of the building, a sheer 5 stories, and then enter the bedroom window to get Jay. Now, Jay had taken a dynamite detonating cap that had string on one end and string on the other end, and he had tied one end to the latch on the window. And he had taken his shoe and driven a nail into the stucco wall of this expensive suite and attached the other string to that nail, so that if anybody did scale 5 floors straight up and open the window, they would have been blown back out.
We're a short time here and a long time gone. And for people to dislike a person because of the color of their skin, I think it's the most stupidest thing in the world. But you can teach a dog to bite, but you can't teach him not to bite after he learns to bite. Yet the dog has to decide himself not to bite anymore, you know.
I was growing up in Ohio, and I had very few experiences with black people. And when I went to New York, I went to these shows by myself, and it was about, I would guess, half and half black and white, or maybe 60% black and 40% white. And we were all just kids. There wasn't one altercation. And you're talking about kids pushing other kids out of the way, and there wasn't one fight. And there wasn't one thing about, you know, black name calling or white name calling. It was just kids.
But most of your shows, when there was blacks on them, they played to a separate audience. They played to a black audience, but they never played to a white audience. And if you had, say, like I had a white piano player or a white sax player, they put a curtain up. They see me, but they don't see the musicians on the same stage. Oh yeah, and if you make a hell about it, then the Ku Klux Klan come in and they kill you. You still got a problem. I had the biggest problem with this guy, Paul Anka. Had out this record, Diana. Yep. He came out of Canada. And they wanted me, I've been on the show for 4 days. There was only 3 more days to go. And they wanted him to share the star spot. So I raised hell. So I says, no, he's a white boy. Let him get it the best way he can. I had to work like hell to get mine. I'm not sharing this spot. I'm not sharing the dressing room, and if you come in there, I'll kill you. You bring him in there. And so Paul Anka looked at me, and Paul Anka says, I'll come to your grave. I said, you'll die before me if I have to pay for it. Right. So I never saw him again. Now, I got along fine with Tom Jones. I got along fine with Frank Sinatra until I saw him smack Sammy Davis in the Fountain of Blue in Miami, Florida. Shine my shoes, boy. And I said, damn, you in show business, can't you people get along? And who asked you? I said,